Welcome. Welcome to Seattle Atheist Church. Agnostics, atheists, free thinkers, skeptics, whatever you like to call yourself, you are welcome here. At Seattle Atheist Church, we call ourselves an atheist church because you will never hear anything supernatural talked about from the podium. So today we have Noelle George from Foundation Beyond Belief, who has come and she's going to give us a talk with us, and then afterwards we'll put our chairs in a circle and we'll be able to have more discussion about what she talks about, ask her questions, and basically talk with each other. Thank you very much, Noelle.
Hey everybody, how are you guys today?
Great.
Good. Okay, who has heard of Foundation Beyond Belief before today? Okay, a couple of you. So Foundation Beyond Belief is a 501c3 charity organization that does humanist service, volunteer, and charity work. And let me give you a little bit of background about me, and then I'll talk to you about what Foundation Beyond Belief does more. I actually grew up here in the area in Seattle. I grew up on the east side in Bellevue, and I went to a Methodist church for a short time. We didn't really go to church when I was young, and then one day in school, I was talking to a friend of mine, and she said something about Jesus, and I said, "Oh, who's Jesus?" And she was horrified, and she said, "You don't know Jesus?" And she, immediately talked about, that I needed to know Jesus, that I was going to hell if I didn't know Jesus. And so I went home very concerned. This was a friend that I looked up to, a little bit older than me, and I went home very concerned, and I said to my parents, "We need to know Jesus because this sounds really serious. We're going to hell if we don't know Jesus." So, and as I said, we had never really gone to church, and so their response to that was to take us to a Methodist church, and it was a fairly liberal Methodist church, Aldersgate Methodist Church on the east side near Factoria in Bellevue, and we went there for a while, and it was really good for me for that period of time. I didn't have a lot of friends, and I didn't have a great family life, and here were these people saying, "We love you no matter what," and they wanted to be around me, and they wanted to know what I thought, and it was all very reassuring, and I was very happy to be there, and I got baptized and confirmed, and went to church dances, and met my first boyfriend at a church dance, and went to church camp, and then and it was a big deal for me, and I tried really hard to believe and to do all the things that I was supposed to do, believing in God, and but as I got older, the start of that was when I was about 13, and as I got older to about 18 or 19, I kind of started being more confident, and I found a group of friends that I enjoyed, and I came out as bisexual, and that was kind of the kicker, all of a sudden the people that loved me and wanted to be friends with me no matter what didn't love me so much anymore and didn't accept me so much anymore, and I had to really look at whether I really believed or whether I just appreciated the community and the friends that it had provided. And when it came down to it, I didn't really truly believe what I had been told, and so I left and started calling myself an atheist about 19. And then I was still in Seattle, and I ended up going to college and a little bit late and graduating about 27, and when I did that, I moved to Houston and got a job in the energy industry for an oil and gas company. And I used to say to people that moving to Houston was like moving to a whole nother country. Moving to Texas was like moving to a whole nother country because it's very different from here. I did a lot of field work out in rural Texas and encountered a lot of very conservative, very traditional older men were mostly the people that I encountered while I was working in the field. And they would always ask me, well, you came down here all by yourself? You're not married, or you didn't come down with a husband? And I would be like, yeah, I came down here all by myself. Yes, I'm 27 and I'm quite independent. And so it was difficult, and it was difficult to meet people in Houston. And a lot of times people would say, well, just go, you meet people at your church. And so moving there, I had never really felt the need to find my atheist people, but moving there caused me to feel that need, because I was confronted so much with traditional beliefs and conservative beliefs. And so I did go to a Democratic meetup, but I didn't really kind of find my niche there. But when I started going to atheist meetups, I really found my people, my tribe. And so I started doing that, and I was seeing a lot of, getting together and talking and discussing about, this was in 2008 or 2009, and I was seeing a lot of, let's get together and talk about theology and talk about things, but I didn't see a lot of doing things, concrete ways that we can take action to improve our communities. And I felt like if we did that, we would draw in more people, like people who to the atheist movement, people who didn't just want to sit around and talk, which it's fun. I enjoy sitting around and talking and debating and things, but I felt like that additional type of activity would draw in more different types of people who were interested in taking action. And so I started a organization called Secular Center, which was around volunteering as atheists, and that was in, I think, 2009. And so I did that in Houston, and we would plan volunteer events and activities and get involved in our community as atheists and say, we didn't hide it. We would say, we're here, we're atheists, and a couple times we got some pushback. One time we actually got turned down at a nursing home. They said, well, we don't have any atheists here. And I said, well, we don't, we're not coming to talk about religion or try to convert anyone. We're coming to, read books and sing songs and, visit with the residents. And they didn't want that, and we found somewhere else that was more friendly and open. So, we did get some pushback, but I did that for a little while, and then in 2011, I merged the Secular Center in with Foundation Beyond Belief and started working at Foundation Beyond Belief. And so that's kind of my history up until I started working with Foundation Beyond Belief. Foundation Beyond Belief was started in 2010 by a man named Dale McGowan. Has anyone heard of Dale McGowan? A couple, but not many. He's an author and an atheist, and he does a lot of parenting seminars. He wrote Parenting Beyond Belief and Raising Free Thinkers. And he saw there were these studies published back then about the generosity of believers versus the generosity of atheists. And the studies showed that believers were a lot more generous than atheists. And Dale thought, well, there must be a reason why that is. And so he, he theorized that believers come to a church every Sunday and they get passed around a basket or a plate or whatever, and they make their offering, and they're reminded every Sunday to do that. But non-believers don't have a way that we're reminded consistently unless we come to something like this, and if you do that, that's great. But a lot of non-believers don't have that avenue, and so he set up Foundation Beyond Belief, which is our first program was the Humanist Giving Program, which is a way for humanists to basically pass the plate. And people donate monthly, and we aggregate their donations and we give them to a group of 5 charities that we select every quarter. And so when we started in 2010, we were giving away about $1,500 per charity, and now we give between $8,000 and $10,000 per charity, so almost $50,000 a quarter. And so that's one way that Foundation Beyond Belief is trying to provide a way for humanists and atheists to show their generosity, to do it together as a community. If we work together and combine our efforts, then we can make a greater impact than if we each do our own individual things. And we've been able to have a great impact on some of the organizations that we have featured. We do a very careful vetting and selection of the charities, and I can talk about that a little bit during the discussion period if there's questions about that. But the other thing that you should know is that we don't retain any money from the designated donations. So some aggregate organizations that aggregate donations, they'll take a cut off the top to fund their operations, and we don't do that. We fund our operations in other ways, so we pass through 100% of the donations that come to us for the charities to the charities, so that they get the full benefit of those donations. So that was kind of how Foundation Beyond Belief started, was with the idea that humanists and atheists are somehow less generous than believers, and that there's a lot of discussion that we can have around that too, because when believers give, they sometimes give to mission trips or to build churches, and that's not separated out from purely altruistic giving. When they report their earnings, it's all lumped together, and so it's not really differentiated. Whereas for us, we don't give to build churches or to further our views, and so there is a difference there too that we could discuss. But we have a couple other programs. We have the Beyond Belief Network, which is a network of 125 local groups around the country that do volunteer service. So like Seattle Atheists is one of our teams. And the teams report their volunteer events to us, and then we count up those events, and we give t-shirts and grants and things like that for those types of events. So like if you guys do volunteer events already or want to do volunteer events, then joining the Beyond Belief Network would be a good way to get perks from doing those events from us. The Beyond Belief Network has accumulated over 100,000 volunteer hours in the time that it's been around. What happened is that when I merged Secular Center into Foundation Beyond Belief was when we started the Beyond Belief Network, and it was called something different back then, but we started with 7 teams that were doing volunteer service, and it's grown to 125 teams. So that's another way that I think is really important to note that a group that's done 5 hours here, 10 hours there, or even 100 hours in a whole year, it's good, but it sounds more impactful, and it is more impactful to be able to say atheists have donated 100,000 hours of community service, in the years that we've had this program. So part of our purpose at Foundation Beyond Belief is to track and coordinate the efforts that atheists and humanists are doing around volunteer and community service and charity work. Another of our programs is the Humanist Disaster Recovery Program. Who's heard of Rebecca Vitzman? Yeah, I'll tell you, she's the lady that was interviewed by Wolf Blitzer on TV after the tornado, who said, actually, I'm an atheist. Now you know who she is, right? She actually, she was in this F5 tornado in Moore, Oklahoma, and I believe it was 2013 was the year, and she narrowly escaped with her life, her and her young son, by leaving their house, and their house was totally destroyed. And while she actually lives in the area down south in Puyallup, but now she lives in the area. But the volunteers were helping her clean up her belongings and sort through her belongings, and they were proselytizing to her while they were doing that. One of them had said something like, "Well, you're raising this baby with Jesus, right?" And she's like, "No." And then the volunteer kind of went off on her and kind of ranted about how she should be raising the baby with Jesus and how she should be doing this and she should be doing that. And this was, as she was sorting through the belongings from her destroyed home, and so she had, she thought to herself, nobody should have to go through this. Nobody should be, picking up the pieces of their life and be proselytized to at the same time. And the fact is that over 90% of disaster volunteers are religious. And so she had the idea to start a program where atheists could go after a disaster and volunteer. And so that's one of our programs. We have the disaster recovery teams. And we've gone to South Carolina in January and helped rebuild homes there after the floods that happened there. And we're working to make sure that that nobody has to be proselytized to, and that people's beliefs are respected while they're going through a trauma like that. Because if you've already been traumatized by a disaster, then it's just that much more traumatizing to have to debate or defend your belief or lack thereof. So we do that. We do say that we're atheists. We don't hide it, but we also don't. We very much respect the victim as we're volunteering, and we don't engage in debates with them or anything like that. And it's okay if they ask us questions. We can answer questions, but and when we were there in January, a group came to us. I can't remember the name, but they quilt these little quilt squares and they hand them out to the volunteers and just try to lift morale of the volunteers. And so while we were volunteering there, this group came and they started handing out the quilt squares. And the lady came to me and she said, I was the first one that she came to, and she said, we just want you to know that we think it's great what you're doing here, and we're praying for you, and all this stuff, and very religious language, and we know God is with you, and all this kind of stuff. And I said, at first I was kind of like, oh, I don't want that. And so my first reaction was like, oh, no, thank you. We're secular. And, I think I said we're secular and we're atheists. I don't remember exactly what word I used. And she immediately said, oh, thank you so much for telling me. We would never want to push our beliefs on anyone, and we think it's great what you're doing, and we just want to support you. And I said, oh, I was kind of shocked. And I was like, oh, okay, well, in that case, sure, and I took the thing, and as she went around to the rest of the people, she modified her language and said, we're thinking of you, we appreciate what you're doing, and there was no more, we're praying for you, and God is with you, and all that. So it was great to be there and to kind of show, like, it was wonderful to help the people that were in need, and they were people that had definitely kind of fallen through all the cracks in the system and had nobody else to help them. And that was very fulfilling, but it was also nice to be there and kind of show that it's not just religious people that come out and help. It's atheists and non-religious people too, and we do good things too. And who knows what the result of that was. And maybe from now on they're going to go and say, like, ask people, are you religious, before they start talking about we're praying for you and all that. So that was an interesting experience. And that's our third program that Rebecca is involved in. And then our fourth program, let me see how I'm doing on time. Yeah, okay. Our fourth program is the Humanist Service Corps. this is a program that was started in, I think, 2012, and it's kind of like the Peace Corps, but it's with humanists, with humanist values, specifically humanist values, where we send volunteers overseas, and we're sending them to Ghana. We have people in Ghana right now who are working in the witch camps there. And what happens is that women who are typically older, who are typically successful, something bad happens in their village or in their family or whatever, and they get accused. Something bad or something good can happen, either way. Something out of the ordinary happens, and they get accused of witchcraft. And if they don't have a man to defend them, like if they're widowed or if they don't have any sons or anything, then they get sent to these witch camps for rehabilitation. And a lot of times they'll go voluntarily, and they go and they're supposed to be rehabilitated in the witch camps and come back, be able to come back. But a lot of times they people say that it didn't work, the rehabilitation didn't work, and so they have to stay in the camps. And the living conditions aren't very good. The medical care isn't very good, and so we've sent volunteers to work with a partner organization down there that works in the witch camps to try and improve the conditions for the women there. And sometimes they get sent by themselves, and sometimes they get sent with their families, so there are children there too. And so our partner organization is Songtaba. They're a local organization, and they asked us to come and help them with this work. And so we've got our first year is just wrapping up of doing that, and we've just sent our second year of volunteers to there. The first year we had 4 people, and this year we have some Americans and some Ghanaians there. We've hired 3 Ghanaians, and I think we have 4 Americans, so we have a total of 7 people there. And so one of the things they've done, for example, in the first year is they did a medical records project where they screened the women for diseases like diabetes and high blood pressure, malaria, and they created a record for each individual at the camp. There are over 1,000 people in the camps. And they've actually saved lives because they've found, cases of like high blood pressure that needed to be treated immediately, malaria that got early treatment, helping prevent the spread of malaria. And they found some human rights abuses, like some girls that were married underage that they reported to the local authorities, and have created this medical records project and system where the residents of Kakuho, the witch camp, have never had medical records in their local language. So in their lives, they've never had their medical record in a language that they can actually understand. It's always been in English or a different language that they can't understand. So it's pretty, and they're actually taking that program, the authorities are taking that program and applying it to other places in the region. Because they like how it was designed so much. So one of the volunteers from last year was a nurse, and so she designed this program. And one of the things that we try really hard to do is make sure that we're doing sustainable work. So she's designed this program, but we've trained local people to do the screenings. We don't do the screenings. So that the screenings can continue, and we've trained local people in how to run the system so that the work can continue even after this nurse Rebecca leaves. So that's one of the really important values of the Humanist Service Corps is sustainability. We don't want to take work from local people. We want to enhance their knowledge and allow them to do the work so that they can continue to do that type of work going forward. So that is one of the kind of hallmarks of that program is humanist values like sustainability and see what are some of the other values that we talked about. The volunteers just had come to Houston and done their training in Houston a couple weeks ago, and so I'm trying to think what else we talked about. We talked about diversity, just making sure that we have people from different backgrounds, different cultures, and different viewpoints in the program. You know, hiring Ghanaians is one of the ways that we do that, having Ghanaians as volunteers. Yeah, I'm sure the others will come to me when I'm not up here in front of you all. But yeah, that's our fourth program, and so I mean, as you can tell, we're doing quite diverse work, and you know, we're trying to have opportunities for a lot of different people to get involved. Like, you know, if you like to donate to charities and you want to donate, you can get involved that way. If you like to volunteer with your local community, you can get involved that way. If you want to go and volunteer after a disaster, you can get involved that way. If you want to commit to a whole year overseas and do, you know, something really different abroad, you can get involved that way, or you can support any of the programs, you know, financially. So there's a lot of different ways to get involved, and I just think it's really, and I will say that I kind of told my story and then I kind of stopped when I started at Foundation Beyond Belief, but I've held various different roles at Foundation Beyond Belief, and just started as executive director last year. So I've been executive director for about a year, and I just think it's really important to work together, to do things as a community, and you know, community is so important, and there's a lot of different ways that we have for people to get involved, and we encourage people to do things locally and nationally as much as they can. I'm a big believer in you do what you can when you can, because if I wasn't, then I would be constantly on overload, because there's so many great causes out there, and so I do what I can when I can, and I think it's important for everyone to try to do what they can when they can, and so yeah, I don't want to talk too long, so we can do the discussion part if you want.
Yeah, well, what we like to do is put our chairs in a circle.
Okay.
And then sort of talk.
Okay.
So thank you.
And I did bring brochures, so